I didn't know it at the time, but then I was making myself the person you go to when you need help with something. And that has turned into scoring a film down the road, So it's all those little bits and pieces. I think that it's more to do with your heart, because if I need a live cello in a scene, and I can't do that, but I can definitely find somebody who can. So that's where community comes in as well. So it all kind of falls into place.
Well, welcome to the show today. We have Aoife O'Leary from Dublin, Ireland with us, and she is a musician. She's toured all over the United States with her band. She's toured all over Europe, and now recently she's been doing quite a bit of film composing and scoring of film, which is really exciting. And I know, Aoife, you have even a course on film scoring that you're working on right now as well. So welcome to the show. So glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. I am so pleased to be here. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's kind of start out. How did you, as you kind of rewind back the clock, how did you end up in the music business? As a kid, did you grow up, or in kindergarten, you're like, hey, I want to be a musician, or how did this all get started for you?
Yeah, probably like most people who are in this world, it's all I ever remember wanting to do. I remember being 3 years old, was that kind of thing, singing for and dancing for any family. There was a pier sort of 20 minutes from my house, and I'd stand at the bandstand and sing for any strangers and then I was the eldest. So as my brothers and my sister came along, we were all musical, and my dad was musical. My mom loves music. So it was a really kind of noisy household as we got into our teens. We had a playroom that we used. There was a drum set in it, and a cello and a violin and guitars, and you come off the bus and walk around the corner and hear my house. So it just kind of was, I loved it, and I always have. And music growing up was through tough times as well, was my friend and really helped me. And so after a while, as I grew a little older, I started to sing and in bands around Ireland, and was a backing singer initially, and both live and session stuff. But really what I loved was louder music and like heavier rock and electronic stuff. Everything from kind of Rammstein, Nine Inch Nails, Deftones, these kind of things, all famously without female singers. But that's what I wanted to do. So I set up my own band, Moth Complex, and that's the band that you mentioned, where we released a couple of albums, toured across the States and in Europe, and got to do amazing things. And so yeah, that was kind of my world. And then as that was within Moth Complex, I had such frustration not being able to move faster. Like I'd have songs I wanted to complete, or things I wanted to do that I didn't have the ability to do because I couldn't produce. And that just went on as Moth Complex ended, and I was trying to do solo stuff. And again, nobody will treat your music as the priority you will. So if you're kind of working with somebody else, they've always got other things doing, and they're always going to fit you in, and it always takes time. And ultimately I ended up just learning to produce and setting up PoppyMoth, which is my production company, to provide that service of production to people with no messing around. So you could get your music produced so that it's really competitive, and it is sync ready, and it is radio ready, if that's what you want. And along the lines, which I suppose we'll talk about more in a few minutes, but I ended up falling into scoring, and that's where I am at the moment. I'm right in the middle of scoring a feature film, and also starting to work, or in the middle of working on a course for intro to scoring, to help all the people who reached out to me and said, I'd love to do that, but I don't know how, or I'd love to score, but I don't think I'm good enough, or do you need to have background in theory? And And with all of them, I just wanted to go, no, do it. This is what you. So I've been documenting this whole process and turning it into a course so that I want that other people get to do these things too, because it's totally possible and it's amazing. So yeah, so that's like my life story in the shortest I've ever told it. I think that was about 3 minutes.
Well, we don't have the Guinness right here to make it official with being in Dublin, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, I love what you said about other people won't prioritize your music as much as you do. And I see it far too often where musicians oftentimes are, we're guilty of being really artsy and, the fluffy, we just want to do our art. And, and I think it's as you look at people who've made it and done really well in the industry, there's typically a combination of both sides of the brain. And the person who's been willing to, I guess, call it prioritize, like you said, and dive in and learn their craft and not just learn how to play the guitar well or learn how to play piano well or sing well. Yeah. Those who are willing to dive in and learn to produce like you've done now, and you're learning to, work in the scoring and, with the movie and the TV and film type stuff. That's a big deal. And it's scary to a lot of people. And I think that fear, or call it the imposter syndrome, keeps a lot of musicians away from probably their full potential. As you look at, so you talked a little bit about I'm curious, traveling with a rock band. You do not, I'm on a Zoom call with you. So if you're on the podcast, you won't see this, but you look like this just warm, nice, soft. I can't see you screaming like a Nine Inch Nails concert. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, it happened for many years. And it's still, I love that. And I do miss it to a degree, but the new music that I'm leaning into creating, there is like heft, we'd call it over here. There is a bit of punch to it, but we toured and I slept in the back of the van, and we do the thing, or the different, like the tricks on tour where we're showering in truck stops, or depending on if you saved up enough money, you could get a hotel room and that we'd all sleep in, and that means we'd all have showers. And the bus was bus now, it was van. You couldn't stretch out sleeping. I'd have to kind of be sleeping with my knees bent because I was between the two wheels at the back, in the van, and it smelled fragrant. A lot of it. And we did the whole thing of sleeping, parking in the Walmart car parks, and so you're going in the morning to their bathrooms and to brush your teeth, and looking like hell. So, but yeah, all of it.
I love that you struggled through, though, and I think a lot of us, if we were honest with ourselves, getting ourselves to that point where, achieving success, whatever the success is for you, I think what often gets lost in what other people don't realize is what went into getting there. If you look back on your progress, to now filming, film scores, that's just, nobody remembers the fact that you were sleeping in the Walmart parking lot in the bus. But I think that's, in a lot of ways, some of the emotion that we get out of our music. I'm sure you'll agree. Pulling on those experiences and those feelings that you maybe had have made your music all so much better. And I think,
sorry, what were you going to say?
Go ahead.
No, I think that music and so much of this world this music world is all about feeling, and the feeling of creating a song and the feeling of being in the zone of that creativity or performance. And, it can be quite addictive. And also it can be a thing where you're get your validation externally. So if you go and you do an incredible show and people are telling you how great you are, you think that you did well. And then if it didn't land so well, it doesn't feel so good. And I've done it definitely where I've poured my heart into time, the time, energy, effort, emotion, creativity, all of it, into creating stuff that was released and barely made any kind of impression. And as a musician, and what I used to do in the past was that every single time something didn't work out according to my expectations or fell short, I felt smaller, or I felt I took it personally, and I started to feel like a failure, stacking those experiences. And it really took a lot of introspection and training and time to start to, now this doesn't sound fancy, but for me to start to witness the patterns of my thought. Oh, when this happens, I do this, and that makes me feel this way. Oh, this happens, and then like the mechanics of my thinking, and to really start to kind of question, maybe if when instead of going that way, I can go this way, so that was one of the things that really, really helped me. So my expectations were so rigid and so high, so that even if something happened that was as good as what I wanted but was different, I still was disappointed. And so rather than kind of having these, if it doesn't go this way, something's wrong approach, and this is quite a shift. Now I feel like, well, let's see how this goes. So I'll release this and let's see how this goes, see how it feels. And look at what happens as kind of just a result that doesn't make anything wrong with me personally. And the funny thing is, the more I have managed to let go, the more incredible the opportunities that have showed up for me, or have shown up for me as a result of that. And I definitely think there's a correlation. But the more relaxed and the more I'm focused on just being happy. Like, we're people, so we're not always going to be happy. Like, there's going to be times in a day or a week where we're not, and then so you know what I mean. But the more that I can make the priority be that I am enjoying my life as much as possible, and that I'm bringing as much to my life and to other people, or as a result as I can, it's almost like life gives back to me. And it sounds so cheesy and corny, but the other way, I just was unhappy, was cranky, was difficult to be around, and always felt like nothing was working out. And that wasn't much fun. So yeah, that's been, I don't know if that answered the question.
No, that's great. So if you were able to, if we were able to rewind the clock back and go back 10 or 15, or pick a number, but go backwards. Yeah. And if you could give yourself some advice on what to, somebody coming into this music industry, and then also what success is, what have you found that success is, and what would you describe that to that person, who's just coming into the industry, of what they need to think about as well?
Yeah. When you asked me that, the first thing that popped into my mind was, I would give me a huge hug and go, you are doing great. Relax and enjoy it, and because I was really afraid, basically, because I think deep down, I don't think I felt that I was good enough as a person. And I was trying to do these things, partly because I loved them, partly because of the fun of doing them, but partly trying to prove that I was worth something in the world. So I would give myself a hug and I would say, you're doing great, and relax and enjoy it. And success to me now is, how good does it feel? Because it doesn't really matter what you're achieving if it doesn't feel good. And so and that's kind of how I measure things as they unfold. Well, this is an incredible experience, but does it feel good? And lean more into that. It's like and growth and expansion are really, really important to me, And so now, like, and I had said this too before we were recording, but now I know the essence really of what I want to do and what I want to create. And I want to continue creating, and I want to connect with amazing people. I love collaborating with people who are on the same wavelength. It's so good. And I want to make loads more music, and I want to score more films, and I want to create intro to scoring, and have that out there helping people. And the nuts and bolts and details and specifics of that, I don't care. However it actually unfolds, or whatever the specifics of it are, that's not my business. So
So
Yeah.
as you're describing that success, the one thing that I find really interesting that I didn't hear you mention it once is that you were worried about what other people were going to think or about your music or about you as a person. And I think that's just a fantastic reminder of, looking for that external. I mean, you talked about earlier in your career, you were looking, it felt good to have somebody tell you were great, but I think as you look back, as you mature as a musician and as a person, all of a sudden that validation of, how many people like me, and think I'm cool, all of a sudden really doesn't matter when you kind of strip back, what matters.
Yes. And also it's never enough. So you get this, and it's how many people are enough likes on an Instagram post, or how many people are enough follows on. So it's like there's always. So once it kind of comes back to, am I being true to myself, and am I being the best I feel I can be in this moment with what I'm doing and contributing in the best way possible, and then the rest of that is kind of out of my hands, and it's just such a relief, and not trying to control. And it's hard sometimes, if people say not nice things, the way, it's not necessarily pleasant. But what I learned is that there was a time where, kind of when I would have been late teens, late teens, where I was too scared to sing. I was so insecure. I was so afraid of if people didn't like it, and so I did everything I could to be around bands. I put on gigs. I did PR for gigs. I supported gigs. My brothers and my sister in bands. My boyfriend was, and it was brilliant to be side of stage supporting them. But when I actually had the courage to do it myself, nothing that I did previous felt like that. And it's worth it. Like, there's nothing like actually taking the step, facing your fears, and doing what you really want to. And any criticism that comes is worth it, rather than stepping back and not doing it at all.
Right. I think it's so sad to see how many talented people really just never have the guts to go for it and step up and swing. And look, you really are so much better than, you just they don't even realize how good they are sometimes.
And I see that with currently, like I said, I'm scoring a feature film. And so I've had so many people, when I've spoken about that music groups that I'm in, musicians who I would think are like way capable, like way more qualified for this than I am or was when I took it on, at least. And we're kind of saying, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'd be able to. I don't know if I'm good. And it's like, of course you can. You figure it out. And like, I think another thing my belief is that if I am showing up in my life and I'm taking these actions and I'm putting this out there and I'm doing this work, then when an opportunity comes to me, even if it feels bigger than I'm capable of, I've brought it in. So I'm a match to it. So when I was asked to score a film, I totally didn't think I was able to. But I still said yes and figured it out, because I had 10 minutes of panic. Well, 10 minutes of screaming and jumping around with excitement. And then thinking, oh, no, I can't do this. And then thinking, okay, grab a hold of yourself right now. What if I could? What if I could? What choices would I make? What if I was going to say yes and I was going to do this? What would I need to bring in to help support me? And that put me on a different trajectory. So I suppose, and especially with Intro to Scoring, that's what I really want to be able to do for other people, to help them know, not just believe or start to think, but like to go, I could do this too. I could do this, because the world really needs like good-hearted people with massive creativity to give. Bring some of that goodness, so
Right.
that needs more of that.
And I think a lot of times people think they have to do everything themselves. And I think there's this fine balance of people saying, well, I don't want to do any of that, and being too scared to try. And I think you've got to become a little bit of a jack of all trades and understand, even if you're never going to be, filming or behind the camera, understanding what's going through that producer or the director or, whoever's on, or the actor, even what's going through on the set if you're trying to support that person as a musician, looking through their eyes can make a huge impact. And then I also, if you got asked to score, just being able to step back and say, okay, I can't do this and I don't know how to do this, but I can find somebody who can do that and find somebody who can teach me how to do this thing and this thing.
Yes.
And being willing to kind of admit that you don't know everything goes a long, long ways.
Yes, it does.
But
really
not being
does.
so afraid I do see some people that are always sometimes too afraid to ever, even try. And I think it's interesting to see what you can actually accomplish if you're willing to step back and say, I can do this. Through my business, I've done a lot of things in the business world. And a lot of the courses, if you've been through trainings, they'll talk, they have like the fluffy, hey, let's hold hands and we need to believe and we can do this. And it used to drive me a little bit crazy sometimes where you go into a course and you're just like, get me the meat and potatoes. I want to, teach me the thing, quit telling me to believe in myself. And I think as I've looked back on many of the successes I've had, the most important part wasn't necessarily knowing how to do the one or two little things that they taught. It was instilling in yourself that I believed that I could, so that when I had a roadblock or a challenge, all of a sudden I was like, okay, I got this. I believe I can power through this. And then the little tools that you'd maybe learned in the courses or, in the school or whatever it was, then could be put into place. But I just think if you lack that belief in yourself, you never even step up.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, just because you decide to go for something doesn't mean it stops being scary. I mean, my friend, I don't remember saying this, but my friend said to me the other day that I said to her a few weeks ago, there's so much crying and scoring because when I had a week where I was finding it really hard, and I don't remember that because, we delivered something today that was kind of a real milestone. So obviously I got past it, but she had said that to me. And the thing is, it's going to feel uncomfortable, but sometimes we think those kind of jittery feelings or a little bit of nerves and stomach, you can call that stuff anxiety or fear or and want to run from it. Whereas if you can kind of lean into it and go, whoa, I'm feeling a lot right now. Yeah. And just keep going. And just keep going. And also find the fun. And it's such a privilege that we get to be the people who are musical. I mean, what a bloody blessing. I'm sorry. I'm getting enthusiastic.
As you're talking about the film scoring and not knowing how to do it, one of my very favorite things that I do is I whitewater kayak and whitewater raft. And if you've ever been down a really crazy river, so there's like the really boring floats, but if you've ever been on the top of a really crazy rapid, if you think about it, that's very similar to any job where you're uncomfortable or take a score. And what I've learned with the river is there might only be one place you can go through, but usually that water, it's finding its way through, a dozen different little paths through the rocks and through the crazy waterfall that it might be going through. And I think as you step into those scary situations, if you'll take it one little bit at a time, and this is for any of my kayaking people, there's probably not very many of them, but for my kayaking buddies, if you just break it down into a couple of paddles, one little move, and then you're going to come behind this rock, and then you're going to, instead of looking at the entire thing of this is 100 meters of crazy rocks that could take my head off and I could die, if you just bite it a little bit at a time, all of a sudden that craziness becomes way more eatable. And my piano teacher used to tell me how to eat an elephant, and you eat it one bite at a time when you'd have these crazy, piano pieces that I, never thought I could play.
Yes, absolutely. And then somebody said to me also, community. Many years ago, she said, when you're in community, things are never that hard because people help each other.
Yep.
And I have found that to be so true. So true.
Yeah. The music community, for the most part, is just the people are so good, and they want to see everybody succeed at whatever it is they're wanting to do. So, wow, great. This is a fun conversation here. So, if you were, as you're trying to give more advice to those people in the film scoring, we've talked a little bit about, the fact that they can do what is the type of musician that you would say is the prime person that really should be considering film scoring? There's tons of different types of musicians. Where would you say you found is one of the biggest needs for types of music out there?
Well, if I'm totally honest, sure, I'm just beginning at this as well, but I would say everybody, because if you think of the types of movies and TV shows and everything that's being made, there is a whole world of creativity and different types of projects needing different types of music. And so I feel like it's wide open. And what scoring was not on my radar, because I'm not classically trained. I don't have a music theory background. I'm the worst guitarist in the world, But I am. Music is everything. So and I have had, this is really important. I've had a working relationship with people over many years, where now that I look back, without even intending to, I was showing up in a way where they felt they could trust me, because I got back to them when I said I would. I provided what I said I would. It was dependable. So all that stuff is really, really essential, and being that sort of person, so that and we spoke earlier about how your project is always going to be most important to you. Whereas if you're somebody who's creating a film project, you're going to want to work with people who are going to be of service to what's best for the film or the TV show or whatever. And so if you can prove yourself to be that, if you can be able to have the skill and the ability that shows you take your craft seriously, the approach to working with people that shows you're dependable and reliable and you'll go the extra mile for whatever somebody needs, the enthusiasm for it, all these kind of things, would you hire somebody like that? Because I would. So it's like having all these different kind of pieces in place. So at that point in time, like say a director approached me a few years ago wanting music that had piano and female vocal. Now I could do that now, no problem, but I couldn't then. And I said to him, I can't give you that, but I know who can, so let me come back to you. And I connected him with somebody who happened to be my sister. And her music was placed in the movie, and she actually was commissioned to create something original for it too. And so that's kind of, I didn't know it at the time, but then I was making myself the person you go to when you need help with something. And that has turned into scoring a film down the road, So it's all those little bits and pieces. I think that it's more to do with your heart, because if I need a live cello in a scene, and I can't do that, but I can definitely find somebody who can. So that's where community comes in as well. So it all kind of falls into place.
Yeah. Well, that's great words of advice. And I think there's more opportunity I've read there's more opportunity in TV and film than there's ever been in the history of, with all of you got the Netflix and the Apple TV and Amazon and every other networks trying to do films and TV shows. There's so much opportunity out there right now. It's a great time to be a musician for sure.
Yes, it absolutely is.
Well, Aoife, I mean, this has been super fun. I know we could keep on talking. I know we're about out of time, but for those that want to check out and find out more about you, I know in the show notes your name's about as hard to spell as my last name is. So it's Aoife and then O'Leary. Very, very Irish name right there, right?
Yes,
and then for those that want to check out the course that you're going to be coming out with, it's intro to scoring.com, I believe.
Yes, it is.
And for those that want to check out the metal rock band version, where can they go to find those old recordings?
That's mothcomplex.com. Moth like butterfly and complex, and then PoppyMoth again. Poppy like the flower, and moth there's loads of things, but basically PoppyMoth and intro to scoring. And also I made we've talked a lot about mindset and reframing, all those things. So if they're not familiar to people and they want to learn more, they can go to poppymoth.com/mindset, and I have a resource there for all those things. So yeah, hopefully be helpful.
Well, thank you so much. So this has been a really awesome interview. I think it's interesting to talk to people when they're in their journey and maybe not like super established, but kind of in that journey. I hope this has been helpful for a lot of people today, and appreciate you taking time to chat with me.
Oh, complete pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Aoife.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Hey, it's Jason here, and I hope you've gotten a lot of value out of this episode. Be sure to check out our show notes to learn more about our guest today, and if you'd like to support our podcast, there's a few things that you can do to help us grow. First, if you hit subscribe, it will help ensure that you don't miss a future episode. Second, if you'll share it with your friends on social media or send it via email or message, it helps us spread the word as well. And third, if you'll leave an honest review, it really helps with the algorithms so that other people can find our podcast. Finding success and fulfillment in the music industry is possible, and I look forward to seeing you on our next episode.